was like, "You're in class yesterday?" And I'm like,
Welcome
"Yes,
to my
I was
world.
in class." So how do I not know this?
Okay, so this is F.F. Bruce, a very, very famous scholar. He said this, there is no body of ancient literature in the world which enjoys such a wealth of good textual attestation as the New Testament. Nothing that's ever been written from the ancient world is as accurate and is as true than the Bible, especially the New Testament. So this was our comparison of ancient literature. And remember, you want the shortest span of time from the first writing to the first copies. And the closer that gap is, the better for those things. Now, at this point, we're not talking, is it true? Because obviously, you know, things, yeah, they are true. But what we're talking about is the Bible we hold in our hands, is it the same thing that was written at that time? We're going to get to, is it true? But first we have to know, is the Bible what was originally written? And that's where the timing comes in. So Caesar wrote between 140 AD, and the earliest copy was 900. So that's 1,000 years, and we only had 10 copies of anything Caesar. I don't know which Caesar it was, but probably, I don't know, Julius Caesar, and 10 copies of anything he wrote. Plato, 47 to 34, 347. And the closest copy is not in 8090, and that's 1,200 years, and we only have 7 copies of what Plato. And then Sophocles, 496 to 406, AD 1000 is the earliest copy, and that's 14 years later, or 14-year time span. We have 190 copies of what Sophocles said. And Aristotle, 384 to 322, 1,100 years is the earliest copy, and the time span is 1,400 years. And we have 49 copies of anything that he wrote. So this is what Greenlee says. Since scholars accept as generally trustworthy the writings of the ancient classics, even though the earliest manuscripts of the Bible, written so long, or even of the original, the handwritten copies of ancient writings, this is the MSS, written so long after the original writings, and the number of extant, that means existing, or that has survived. MSS is in many cases so small, it is clear that the reliability of the text of the New Testament is likewise secure. Nobody says that Sophocles didn't write that. And they believe when they say this is written by Sophocles, everybody believes it. But if it's the Bible, they don't. Well, we can't know that for sure. And I would submit that it's a matter of an act of the will to not believe, because whatever Sophocles wrote, it isn't going to have. You're not going to have to change your life for it, right? You're not. It's not going to turn your life upside down. But if you come to know Christ, I'm here to tell you, it will turn your life upside down in the best possible way. It certainly did that for me. So we're going to talk about why is that stupid? Okay, so now we're going to talk about prophecy. And I don't think we talked about this at all. So this is the internal test. Prophecy is the internal test. And the most common objection to prophecy is the prophecies were written at or after the time of Jesus. Therefore, they fulfill themselves. So how do we respond to that? How do we know that they weren't written at the time or after the time? How do we know if they were written hundreds of years before they happened? And so, if you're not satisfied with 450 BC as the historical date of the completion of the Old Testament, then take into consideration the following: the Septuagint. So the Septuagint is sept. It means seven, and it's the Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures. So we know for sure that Greek translation was around basically 300 BC. So there would have it had to. So the Hebrew text of the Old Testament had to come first, because this is a translation of that. So it can't be any later than 300 BC. Now, one thing we know from the Old Testament and the New Testament, and I believe all scholars believe this, that between the closing of the Old Testament, the last book written of the Old Testament, to the birth of Christ, was about 400 years. And it's called the silent years, that God was not divulging, not doing anything new, generally. Big things, right? Like what Isaiah did, and what Daniel did, and all that, and then what Jesus did. So you've got, when God's doing something new, and when God's doing something important, we see those kinds of things. We see His handiwork, right? Especially in miracles. So the Old Testament had to have been finished before that 400-year span, because God wasn't saying anything. Nothing was being written until about the 40s AD, when the New Testament began to be written. So the completion of the Old Testament had to be 400 BC or later, or earlier, I probably should say. So let's talk about these prophecies of Jesus. Yeah. So, and we're just doing 8 prophecies. That's all we're doing. 8 prophecies. Okay. There are hundreds of prophecies of Jesus. I just talked to the junior or the sophomores about one today, and I taught you this as well, that the cleansing of the temple, and the prophecies of the Lord coming to His temple quickly. And I believe that is, there's some prophecies that have already been made, they've already been fulfilled, right? There's some that will come later, and I think there are some like that one that apply both to when Jesus was on earth and when Jesus will come again. I think he will come again to the temple. And I think that particular prophecy has already been fulfilled and will be again. So, born, the Messiah would be born at Bethlehem. And this was, the Jews knew this. They believed this. They believed that Messiah would be born in Bethlehem. And so we have no, I didn't put that in there. So we have in Micah 5:2, it says this, but as for you, Bethlehem, Ephrathah, too little to be among the clans of Judah. From you one will go forth for me to be a ruler in Israel. His goings forth are from long ago, from days of eternity. So it's saying that the ruler who will come will be eternal. and only God is eternal. So it is saying that God will come, and so that's a prophecy of Messiah. And then that he will be preceded by a messenger. This is from Isaiah 43 and Malachi 3:1. And it says, "A voice is calling, clear the way for the Lord in the wilderness, make smooth in the desert highway for our God." Who fulfilled that prophecy? John the Baptist. It was speaking about John. And John knew he was the one that was to make way for the, yes.
I'm leaving.
Okay. We'll miss you. And you can watch the rest of it.
Bye, Ellie.
Bye.
Where are you going?
Ewing, my cousin's in the
Oh.
playoffs for football.
That's exciting.
yay.
So we're gonna
Go
watch
fight
it.
win.
Yeah.
Good time.
Have fun.
Did you tell him I'm wearing your Converse?
So not only was this fulfilled by John the Baptist, but he knew it. He called himself the one who makes the way for Messiah. That's the AKV, but he said that, and he was preaching in the wilderness and saying, "Repent, because the kingdom is at hand." That's a perfect description of John the Baptist. And then he would enter Jerusalem on a donkey. So this prophecy is in Zechariah 9:9, and it says, "Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout in triumph, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and endowed with salvation, humble and mounted on a donkey, even the colt, the foal of a donkey." So it doesn't even just say he was on a donkey. He was on a young donkey. And Jesus says, "There's a colt, and get that colt and bring it to me." So it was, that was written in 520 BC. So more than 500 years before Jesus fulfilled that. And you can read about that in Matthew 21 and in Luke 19. And they brought it to Jesus, the colt, and they threw their garments on the colt and put Jesus on it. And as he was going, they were spreading their garments on the road. And then the next one is that he would be betrayed by a friend. Here is from Psalm 41. "Even my close friend, in whom I have trusted, who ate my bread and lifted up his heel against me." So Jesus passes the bread to Judas, right? And then he lifts up his heel, which is a way of saying betrayal. So he was betrayed by a friend. So in Matthew 10:4 we read, "Judas Iscariot was the one who betrayed him." So what about the criticism that the prophecies fulfillment was written into the story of Jesus? How do we know it wasn't just written in after the fact? Well, there are a number of reasons we can know that didn't happen. First of all, many were realized after the Gospels were written. They didn't realize that those were even prophecies of Messiah until it happened. I would have loved to have seen the disciples, and go, wait, because they had the Old Testament memorized probably, and seeing Jesus do these things, that's what Messiah was supposed to do. And I think the understanding maybe came in stages. Many were realized after the Gospels were written. And then we have historic corroboration outside of the Bible of some of these things that were like the crucifixion and others that were prophesied long before. And then we have eyewitness testimonies, both friend and foe. When you can get someone who is pro Jesus and someone who is con Jesus, and they say, yeah, the same thing, you can be pretty sure that they're telling the truth, right? And we have that. We, we have Josephus, who was not a believer, telling the same basic story about Jesus. Then in Zechariah, we're told that, sold for 30 pieces of silver. And it says in Zechariah, and I said to them, if it is good in your sight, give me my wages, but if not, never mind. So they weighed out 30 shekels and shekels of silver as my wages. And so Judas Iscariot asked that same price to betray Jesus. And it says in Matthew 26, they weighed out to him 30 pieces of silver. And then the money would be thrown into God's house, into the temple. So the prophecy is Zechariah 11:13. So I took the 30 shekels of silver and threw them to the potter in the house of the Lord. And this is what we read in Matthew. It says, and they counseled together and with the money bought the potter's field as a burial place for strangers. So, I'm sorry, I didn't read it. And he, meaning Judas, threw the pieces of silver into the sanctuary and departed. And they counseled, that means the Jews, the Jewish leadership, together and with the money bought the potter's field as a burial place for strangers. And then the next one is silent before accusers. I know your book says dumb. I changed that slide because that has that, dumb as being silent, not able to speak, is not what we usually call it. So it's not stupid. It's silent. He was silent before his accusers. So in 700 BC, Isaiah wrote this. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. And we see in Matthew, and while he was being accused by the chief priests and elders, he made no answer about Jesus. And then the last one, the eighth one, his hands and feet would be pierced. This is hundreds of years. The Romans invented crucifixion. So there's no way that Psalm 22, if you just maybe tonight go home and read Psalm 22. It reads like a description of Jesus' crucifixion. Hundreds of years before it happened. And they would have had the Romans devised crucifixion. They would have had no way of knowing that was a way to die, what crucifixion was. And most of Psalm 22 talks about they've gambled for my clothing. They've just all kinds of things. So I'd say read that tonight. I think that would be helpful for you. So 22:16 says, they have pierced my hands and my feet. There was no such punishment like that. Anyway, how did the psalmist know to say that? And then the fulfillment in Luke. And when they came to the place called the skull, Golgotha, there they crucified. Now, that's just a few of the prophecies of Jesus. But what I want to talk to you about is what is the mathematical probability of one person, Jesus, or any one person living at any time, fulfilling these prophecies. So I want to give you an idea of the odds of this. So we're going to take 8 prophecies. Now, there are many more prophecies than that. But Peter Stoner has said in Science Speaks that by using the modern science of probability in reference to 8 prophecies listed above. So this is math. This is not faith-based. This is math. And I know I'm already. So this is what he writes. We find the chance that any man might have lived down to the present time and fulfilled all 8 prophecies. The chances of that happening is 1 in 10 to the 17th power. So it would be 1 chance. I gotta count. Oh, there's, yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, you're, that is 1 in 1 to the to 10 to the power. So let's try a visual because I don't do numbers well. Suppose you took 10 to the 17 silver dollars, okay, the number of dollars, silver dollars, and lay them on the face of Texas. You dump them on Texas. It would cover the whole state 2 feet deep with coins, silver coins, silver dollars. Now, mark one of those silver dollars and throw it in those silver dollars and stir all the silver dollars up. And then blindfold someone and tell that person that he can travel everywhere he wants as long as he wishes. But he must pick up the silver dollar on the first try. And find the right one. So that would be the chance, the same as the chance of one man fulfilling 17 prophecies. So that's just the same chance that the prophets would have been writing these 8 prophecies and having them all come true by any one man from their day to our day. So could God apart from God, or excuse me, could man apart from God do this? No. So a scholar named, his last name unfortunately is Stoner, considers 48 prophecies. Okay, so now we're going to 48 prophecies because Jesus fulfilled more than that. We find the chance of any one man fulfilling 48 prophecies to be.
I think you're gonna have enough room to write that many zeros.
I will. I tried it last year. It didn't work very well. So
You have to like erase everything on your board and it tries like.
I don't think you would have to.
Only
well, we're gonna talk about it. Now let's. I'm gonna skip that for now. So the probabilities of one man, meaning Jesus, fulfilling 48 Old Testament prophecies, is. Let me tell you first though that the scientific threshold for the impossible. Okay, scientific threshold of the impossible is this. So 8 prophecies is 1 in 10 to the power of 17, right? And 16 prophecies would be 1 in 2, or excuse me, 10 to the power of 45. So we're approaching, right, in that, the scientific absurdity. So let me give you the concept model for 16 prophecies. So take a ball of silver dollars with a radius 30 times the different distance to the Earth from the Earth to the Sun, and the same idea of the Texas model, and then someone comes and picks out the marked dollar, silver dollar on the first try. It is beyond absurd. It's unthinkable. And so, what's the concept for 1 in 10 to the 157th, 48 prophecies? What's the concept model? There isn't one. It's bigger than we can grasp. We can't come up with one. So here's some other. Oh, give me just a second because we're really almost done, and then we'll stop with this. So where are you headed? Oh, different places. Okay. So the total atoms in the universe is 10 to the 66. The total particles is 10 to the power of 80. The seconds in 10 billion years is 10 to the 17th. So for anyone to fulfill 48 biblical prophecies is scientifically absurd, and yet the Bible reveals that Jesus did just that. Apart from God, it's not possible. So anyone who rejects Jesus Christ as the Son of God is rejecting a fact proven more absolutely than any other fact. There you go. Yes.
I wrote down how many zeros.
I like
The
it.
number.
Holy cow! For that biggest one?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's impressive.